alive.
Hi, Helen. How are you today?
I am good, Lauren. It is not raining. It is not snowing. I'm taking the weather as a sign of a good day.
Oh, it is very snowy here.
Oh,
And
sorry, Lauren. That wasn't.
just as we thought spring had arrived, Sweden, someone just said to me, Sweden's always like, come on, come on, come on. And there's like, snow. Like, just
Underneath that snow is that there's a flower just waiting for you, Lauren.
And I just admiring all the squiggles behind you. Very squiggly. Love to see it. Love to see it. I've got my upfront necklace on today.
I mean, where there's a body, there's a brand.
Yes. So really happy to have this time with you today. We have officially opened our doors to Bond 7 on Monday. And so we've got all sorts of amazing conversations with different experts lined up over the next few weeks. And we knew we wanted to have a conversation specifically about confidence at work. So of course, Amazing If was very top of my list. And so I would love you to tell our listeners kind of who you are, what Amazing If does, and then we can get into confidence at work and specifically confidence gremlins.
Right. That's the story to Gremlins. So I am Helen. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Amazing If, where our mission is to make squiggly, hence all the squiggles, squiggly careers better for everybody. And squiggly careers are effectively a career that can be fluid and flexible, where people have the freedom to develop in different directions. And that could be within the same organization. It could be across different organizations or in the same profession. It's really just saying, what do you want your working career to look like? And let's not constrain your career by the concept of a ladder. Let's give you options and opportunities to be at your best, whatever that looks like for you. And so we support individuals with the skills to succeed in their squiggly career. And then we work with organizations to create structures and cultures where those kind of careers are possible. And I do that with my business partner, Sarah, who is all kinds of brilliant. And we've known each other now for over 20 years. So I get to work with a very close friend on something we're both very, very passionate about. And I guess within the concept of squiggly careers, there are 5 skills that we think are most fundamental that are sort of universally useful, regardless of where you work or how long you've been at work. And confidence is one of the 5. So that's why for us, it's such an important focus. And I think specifically, and then we can get into the gremlins, I think specifically, without confidence, I think there are 2 big risks. Everything else is a lot of awareness, but you don't take action. So I'm like, I'm aware of my strengths. I'm aware that I need a career community, but I haven't got the bravery to move any of that stuff forward. So it's awareness and action we need, and confidence is a big part of the action. And I think the other thing is if people are going to benefit from squiggly careers and let go of the ladder and have a more individual career, it is probably going to mean they're going to have to make some difficult choices. Like when I decided to leave my corporate career and do what I now do, that was a difficult decision. And those difficult decisions require self-belief. And it might be a sort of courageous career conversation, but if you've not got the confidence to do that, you're not making those decisions, you're not having those conversations, and so you might find yourself stuck in a career that might look good on the surface but isn't really making you happy. So confidence creates more individual careers because you've got the bravery to have those discussions about your development, and it means that you can put all the awareness into action.
Yes, I love that description. And it's one, so I often talk about confidence being the bridge between an idea or a thought and then taking action. So I'm really on the same page with you on that. And I always say in the bond, like, insight's great. Like, you're going to read new things, learn new things, hear new ideas. But if you don't put those things into action, not very much is going to change. And I love the idea of the difficult conversations. What did you call it? Career changing conversation.
Yeah,
like courage to make those courageous decisions, because it took me 6 years to feel confident enough and brave enough to close all my other businesses and say, I am going to be the CEO of Upfront and build this brilliant thing. And that's, you know, at the core of that was my self-belief. And, you know, I've talked a lot about the, you know, what I've learned retrospectively, kind of looking back at that process. But I know that you do a lot of work with corporates and big organizations where hundreds and thousands of people work. So what would be an example of that, like, courageous decision where you need that boost of confidence in a corporate setting that you see a lot?
So lots of different examples. I mean, there's one that instantly stuck in my mind. Really, and I won't name the organisation because I don't want to kind of identify the person who said this to me. But we were running a career program with a company, and I was talking to a guy, and I was just asking him, like, you know, in the lunchtime, how things were going. And he said, yeah, actually, I'm a lot happier than I was when we last spoke to each other. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. What's going on? And he said, oh, I've gone back to the job that I did before. He said he became a manager. So, you know, kind of had got promoted to a position of management for the first time. And he said, and I wasn't really enjoying it. I sort of realized that it was what other people thought I should do, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. And he said, so I had to have a really difficult discussion, like sort of with myself, first of all, to like let it go, and then with somebody else and make it and make sure that I didn't feel like a failure. And he said, but I'm just so much happier now. I've gone back to what I was doing before. And I think when he said that, I was like, well done you. That is brave. That is brave to sort of start something, realize it's not for you, admit that to yourself and to someone else, and go back to what you were doing before. So many people don't do that. They make a decision about their career development, and then it turns out not to be the one that's right for them, but they're not brave enough to discuss it or do something different. So they stick in it and they start to, you know, stagnate and get frustrated. But, you know, so it could be that kind of a situation. It takes confidence, often giving people feedback. That takes a lot of confidence. And that can be to your peers or to your manager. Lots of people struggle to do that, to give it and to ask for it in the first place. To put yourself forward for new positions. There are so many people who rule themselves out of roles because they can't tick everything that is on that wish list of what they want from somebody. Like, well, I haven't got all 5 ticks, so I won't put myself forward for it. And so confidence is a massive part of people's careers on a, you know, like on a day-to-day basis, as well as like the more significant points in someone's progression.
Yeah, I agree. And we see it so much when we ask. So when people join the bond, I always say, like, why are you here? What have you signed up for? Why do you want to take part? And when it's about work, it always strikes me how much it's often about other people. So it's like, I'm here because I really want to be the best leader I can be. I want to learn how to be a good manager. I want to role model what like genuine confidence looks like to my team. And I think that's always like a moment for me, because confidence gets such a bad rap because we associate it with like arrogance and aggression and being too much. And actually, most of the time, especially, not always, but especially in conversations with women, there's always this kind of focus on community and the understanding that if I can grow my confidence, it's going to help every single person in my life. It's going to change how I lead, how I host meetings, how I give and receive feedback. So tell me the confidence gremlin story.
The confidence gremlin story. So confidence is belief in yourself and other people believing in you too, because there's sort of 2 sides to a confident coin, if you like. Then the thing that can get in the way of that belief is confidence gremlins. And so confidence gremlins are sort of doubts that get in the way of your development. They are stories that you tell yourself. It's when you're in a meeting and this little voice in your head pops up and says, don't ask them what that acronym means, because you're supposed to know that by now. And if they think you don't know that by now, they're going to think you're not good enough. It's that voice. It's the voice that says, when they're looking for someone to present, well, Helen, that can't be you because you're not a good presenter. So don't put yourself forward for that. It rules you out. It makes you smaller, and it is a source of stress. And it is so often self-created. Like, I always think there's the numbers gremlin. So quite a lot of people have got confidence gremlins about numbers. So like, it sounds like, you know, I'm not good at numbers. I'm not a financial person. I don't do.
I went to art school with. It's
Yeah, and they say this, and it is so often rooted in school. They're like, oh, well, I
Yeah.
wasn't in the top class in maths. Oh, yeah, well, I got a C in my GCSE, so I'm not good at numbers. And you're like, nah, maybe you're not going to be an accountant. Okay, can you talk about numbers? Probably yes. You've moved on from that moment. We're not in that environment anymore, but you've carried that little gremlin and it's become this big voice of doubt in your head that's stopping you talking about how the team's doing. Is the business growing or not growing? You're ruling yourself out so much from those conversations that you're not giving yourself the opportunity to contribute or to learn and develop. And so we get in our own way. And what Sarah and I have seen with confidence gremlins, so the two things that I guess have not surprised me, but the two things that I've just sort of learned to be true about them, I suppose, is that everyone has them. That's liberating. You're like, oh, it's not just me who worries about this stuff. Like Lauren runs her own company. Bet Lauren's got a confidence gremlin, or maybe more than one. Like it doesn't matter how seen you are, how shiny you look on the surface. Everybody has got doubts that get in the way of their development. And then the other thing that I think we've seen to be true in the work that we have done is that there are some confidence gremlins that are particularly common. Mm-hmm. So, and once you kind of, why that is helpful is your starting place when we're working with people. We can put the 10 most common confidence gremlins in front of people and we can say, which one of these feel familiar to you? And it takes some of the scariness away of admitting that I worry about some of this stuff, because I'm just going, oh yeah, that one about senior people, I've recognized that one, or that one about failure, I recognize that one. And so it does make what can feel like a difficult conversation, so it's quite vulnerable to say I worry about these things. It does make it easier when your starting places all over the world, whatever companies we work in, these are the 10 that we see most frequently. So which feel familiar to you?
And what is can you tell us through, let's talk about the senior intimidation around senior people, because I know that often the feedback that we get from our clients, and the client's usually the senior person, is that they notice the bonder changing how they are in relationship with this person. And they're like, this is amazing, because this is what I've always wanted, like more openness, more informality, more chat, more challenge, more critique, more questions. And so it's a win-win situation for everybody involved when you can beat that confidence gremlin. So tell us a little bit about that one.
Well, I think you've got a few things playing into it. So there's a little bit of a psychological thing going in, but there's also a bit of a structural thing in companies, which is that companies, because of ladder-like careers, have created these hierarchies where there are, progressively more senior people, and that comes with people having different levels of responsibility over an organization and somebody's career. So in a ladder-like way of thinking, if you're my manager's manager, Lauren, I might be thinking, well, I've got to stay on Lauren's good side because she's got quite a lot of influence over me and my next promotion. And so I think that structure then influences the psychology. Like, how do I get on Lauren's good side? And I stop being authentic, and I start thinking about how I present this perfect version of myself. But a lot of people don't want the perfect version. They want the discussion, they want the debate. Like, the value is not in the perfection. The value is in what you bring and what I bring, and in the gaps in our individual knowledges comes something better together. And so if you're trying to present like yes, Lauren, I've got it and I've presented it and this is what I think we should do, then you're like, you're coming across a little bit fixed, Helen. Like I value the discussion. I kind of want to get there together. But that I think for a lot of people that feels quite difficult, because they assume that they've got to present this perfect front in order for them to come across quite well. So a lot of the time what we're trying to do with people who have a confidence gremlin of senior people is to sort of to recognize the hierarchy that they are kind of placing. Sometimes I even get into a discussion about where it feels appropriate. It's not appropriate all the time, but sometimes I talk about the parent-adult-child dynamic. Depends who I'm with. But because some people it's a bit of a light bulb moment when they see that they've taken this idea that, outside of work, we, potentially have a parental figure who we look up to for guidance and validation and direction. And then we've just taken that construct and put it in a company. And then we're going to this, Lauren's my manager's manager. And suddenly she's become the parent that I'm looking for validation and direction. And I put myself in the child position, but I'm nearly 40, and maybe we should do something different now. And so sometimes I talk about that with people, but it is about like, how do you behave differently with that person, and why, and what is the authentic version of you, and what do you want to be known for, and how do you bring more of that version of you into the conversation? Like, imperfection will probably build that relationship better than presenting the perfect version of yourself. And what we play around with people is moving from a limiting belief to a limitless belief. So for example, with senior people, it might be, I don't know, the limiting belief might be they need to think I'm perfect in order for me to progress. And you're like, interesting. And then the limitless belief might be, if I show themselves that, if almost like they've got more ways they can help me to progress if they see the spaces in which I can grow. Like you're giving them, you're giving them more to help you grow if they see that you've got sort of gaps to work with. If you present yourself as perfect, they're a bit, you're not giving them anything to grow. So helping people almost reframe those limiting to limitless beliefs is really important. And also to get them to, if I say to myself, well, I need to come across as perfect in order to progress. And you say to somebody, okay, well, the other people that progress in this organization, do you think they come across as perfect? They go, oh no, like Helen Tupper, she makes mistakes all the time, but she's got good relationships and she seems to get stuff done. Okay, so you don't have to be perfect in order to progress then. And holding those assumptions up, often using other people to talk it through, helps people to realize that they've created one story for themselves that they don't actually believe in for other people. So playing around with assumptions and limiting to limitless beliefs are often ways we can sort of expose this gremlin. It's been living and breathing in people's brains for too long. And sometimes we have to expose it, put it under a spotlight and go, are we giving this gremlin a bit too much space in our brain?
Yeah. Lots of folk in the chat saying mic drops, left, right, and centre, breakthrough moments. Brilliant. I think the other thing I notice with the seniority relationship is that piece about when you really start to accept and believe that doubts and nerves and low confidence and fear and all these things are part of being a human being, and that there's no one person who's immune from that stuff. Like you and I both have confidence gremlins, and we could both write a book about confidence gremlins, but we still have them. And I feel like when you it's easy to say that, but when you deeply believe that and accept that, you start to see these people as also people who are on their journey of learning and reflecting, and it somehow levels the playing field, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And they don't really go anywhere. That's what I've learned. Sometimes I used to have a confidence gremlin about being too young. I definitely used to have that one in some of the organizations that I was in. And now that one's maybe gone, but I feel like it's been replaced with another about don't be too difficult. And it's sort of, it's just normal. And I think as your career changes, another gremlin might grow. And it's just, to your point, I think reflection and self-awareness helps you to spot them before they become too significant. And it's just going, okay, I can see there's a little belief here that's holding me back. And so what am I going to do differently now? Because I don't want to be defined by that. I am finding this situation a bit hard, but where is that coming from? And what can I do differently so that gremlin doesn't take control of my career? Which is, honestly, Lauren, I see this a lot. I see people who've let a gremlin take control of their career, and it stops them speaking up or applying for jobs, or it gets them stuck in situations. And it's so often what's within somebody. It's not the bad manager or the company that hasn't given them a promotion. It's the thought processes that exist within them.
And even just giving that oxygen, right? It's like realizing it, telling the story, having the conversation is so powerful. And I'd love you in the chat, if you're thinking about what your gremlin is, bring it out its cage, put it in the chat, because I think even that is like acknowledging and getting curious of like, oh, there's this thing, like, what's this trying to teach me? So what's another one of your favorites out of the 10 that we can talk about
Another, it's like it's without really exposing myself, my own gremlins. I mean, I can do. I've written about it, haven't I? And need to be liked. I find that one quite an interesting one. So a lot of people have a gremlin that, you know, it almost sounds like, well, if people don't like me, then I won't be successful. And so what that leads to, what it leads to is people sort of being perpetually positive, even when they might not feel like it. So, you know, you're having a hard day, whatever's going on at home, you've come out of a meeting and someone goes to you, you know, oh, Lauren, like, how you doing? And you don't go, do you know what? It's been a really hard day and I could just do with 10 minutes to get my head. You go, yes, well, good. Yeah. How are you doing? And I think that stuff can often feel quite hard for people. It stops them. I recognize this one in myself, and it stops me challenging or sometimes and speaking up, because I think, oh, I don't agree with that perspective, but if I speak up, I'm making a bit of a point of it. So I don't want to be too difficult. I won't say it. And it's probably some of my biggest career regrets have come from that confidence gremlin of thinking, well, people need to think I'm a nice person, and therefore by being too challenging in this meeting, they'll think I'm not being nice. But you know that point about looking at other people to see whether you really believe that to be true. When I look at what I respect in other people, so people like you, Lauren, and, you know, other people too, I see you challenging, I see you speaking up for what you believe in, and I don't think you're not a nice person. So this story that I've created that, oh, you're not a nice person if you speak up too loudly, it's like, it's only a story you hold for yourself and not one I believe to be true when I look at other people. So that's a very common one. And I do think as well, it's often quite conditioned in women quite early on, this kind of niceness thing.
Yeah, very much so. And it's one that I really relate to, and so a huge part of the conversations we have up front, and something that has helped me a lot is understanding and recognizing the difference between being kind and being nice. And there's a kind of etymological context there behind the word that is really interesting, and that, you know, being nice is very, you know, very flat, very docile, whereas kindness is inactive, whereas kindness is much more intentional and kind of action orientated. And obviously we see this idea of niceness being weaponized against women and girls, and it fundamentally changes how we think about our potential and our power and our influence in the space we take up in the world. And it's always interesting to me to think about it in the context of being a founder, where we're building organizations that are challenging the status quo, and we are trying to lead teams and get clients and do all those things. And it's like feeling comfortable and confident to do that, and know that not everybody is going to like it or think that you're nice. But as long as you are always kind, I feel like that's the way that I think about it that helps me. It's like, I'm not building a business to be nice to everybody. Like, that's impossible. That doesn't, but I will always strive to be kind. And it's this idea of like kind leadership or kind entrepreneurship or building a kind culture. There will be elements of that people wouldn't like, and that's okay.
It is. And I always, the things that stick with you, the things that have helped me with that gremlin, it's random, the things that you collect when you really look for them. The whole clear is kind, unclear is unkind. So don't be vague, don't be waffly. Like, clear is kind, Helen. And so I keep that in my mind. And then randomly, a podcast from Atega Awagba from like a couple of years ago, she was talking about, I think, success and achievement and validation. And I think it was a piece of advice her mum gave us, like super simple, and just said something like, not everyone's going to clap for you. And I was like, yeah, like, good point. Like, and I'm not asking everyone to clap, but maybe in my head I was, but not everyone is going to clap for you. And that's okay. That's okay. Like, find your cheerleaders and your champions, but not everyone's going to clap for you. And accepting that, I think, sort of takes the pressure off needing to be liked by everybody.
Yeah. And validation is a big part of confidence gremlins, I think, around perfectionism and kind of fear of failure. It's like, what happens if they say no, Or what happens if they don't answer me? And what happens if I go for the promotion and don't get it? And recently I heard this on a podcast by Rachel Rogers, who runs a brilliant organization called Hello 7. And she was talking about reframing rejection to see no's as a really positive thing. So much to say that if you are not getting any no's, you're playing it too safe. Like you're staying really firmly inside your comfort zone. You want to be collecting no's as badges of I'm aiming really fucking high right now. Like I'm punching above my weight and I'm dreaming really big, and that's going to come with lots of no's. And that's really helped me because I get so many no's all day. No's. I'm sure you're the same. And of course,
I saw a presentation. It was years ago now. It stuck with me. Made me smile when you talk about something. I think it was called like no exposure or something like that. Basically, the more you expose yourself to people saying no, the easier it becomes to not personalize rejection. And so the person did a project. It was a guy did a project where like every day he tried to get a no, like little things like he would go into like a Starbucks and say, "Can I have a shot for free?" And they'd be like, no, because you have to pay for that. But like every day, putting himself in a situation where he's sort of asking for something a little bit unreasonable, but you're not awful. And then he got kind of worse and worse, so that he was kind of getting more exposed to the no's. And I quite liked that. So that actually then it just becomes easier to ask.
I do like that. So how can we support your mission to make careers more brilliant for everybody?
I think, a few things. So I think with confidence in particular, I think like talk about your confidence gremlins. I think the more that we can take the lids off these things, like go, one of the things that I worry about is, just being that little bit more vulnerable and taking off this like I don't know, presence of perfection, like just in kind of going, oh yeah, I do run my own company and I have written these books, but you know what? One of the things I really worry about is that I worry about failure. I worry my third book won't be a success. And it's sort of like just exposing these things so that people can talk to you and support you. And I always think as well, having like confidence gremlin buddies really helps. So I have, I'm my business partner, Sarah, she knows my gremlins, I know hers, and we support each other with that stuff. So on confidence in particular, just taking the lid off it a little bit and talking about it. And if people need help with that, then on our website, we've got a free ebook, How to Cage Your Confidence Gremlins. And it's the 10 most common ones, and it talks them through. And you could maybe use that as an entryway into those sorts of conversations with people. But generally with squiggly stuff more broadly, I think the best thing that people could probably do is talk squiggly in their company. And so we have this thing called the squiggly swaps, which is like when you spot ladder-like language in a company, make a squiggly swap. So, for example, when people talk about career plans, and you can go, oh, that's really interesting. I'm really curious about career possibilities, because plans fix your future and possibilities open them. Or when people talk about steps, like, oh, Lauren, what's your next step? You can say, oh, that's an interesting question. One of the things that I love talking about is the different moves I'd like to make. Like there are these simple swaps in language that people can do that really help us get rid of the legacy of the ladder that's like present in lots of places, and instead makes sort of normalize the squiggly stuff, which gives people more opportunities. And I can always post like a link maybe in this chat later on. We've created like a little one-page PDF of some squiggly swaps, which might help people take that language into their conversations and into their companies.
I love that. Language is very powerful. Like we underestimate the power of the language that we use. Well, if folks who are listening are determined to reveal their confidence gremlins, would love a confidence buddy, want more of these types of conversations around confidence, I would love to invite you to join our next bond, which starts on June 5th. And our doors are open. You can go to weareupfront.com. It is our 6-week online course where you will join hundreds of women from all over the world to transform your relationship with confidence. Our last bond was bond number 6, and we welcomed 512 women from 25 different countries. And you will learn to love something that you hate, like public speaking. You'll find your people and you will 10x your confidence. And so I would love to welcome you. and really happy to have a conversation with anybody that's listening who's curious to find out more about the bond, because I know lots of you have come over from Helen's network, so it's really nice to meet you. And Ruth is saying there's lots of great stuff on the Amazing If website around resources. You've got your podcast, your 2 brilliant books, so be sure to check out all of those things. And thank you very much for listening, and thank you for being here, Helen. It's been really nice. I really could talk to you. But I'm really proud of us that we did it in half an hour, because I've got so many questions that I want to ask you, but we did it.
We'll do a part 2. I love it.
Enjoy the rest of your day and say hi to Sarah for me.
I will do. Thank you so much, Lauren. Bye. Take care. Bye.